So yeah, let's get into the offseason. I mean, number one, the priority here was, and this is hilarious because on the year anniversary of James Harden getting lied to, we're talking about how Maxey had a promise with Daryl Morey to get a max contract. The most, it wasn't reported, but the most open secret in the NBA. Obviously, Maxey gets his 5-year max this offseason. Actually gets more since he's all NBA adjacent and got an all-star berth than he could have gotten. But that's not the big news of the offseason, despite that being the expectation of the offseason. The news of the offseason is Paul George coming in into cap space, 4 years, 212 million. One of the bigger free agency signings that we've seen in a while, and probably one of the bigger ones I think we'll see for a while, frankly. This kind of happens after the Clippers situation deteriorates. They offer him basically 4 years, 160 million, which is, very far under what he was worth. He tries to get signed and traded to the Warriors. Clippers don't want to take salary. They don't think the assets for the Warriors are good. And the Sixers are like, come into our cap space. We are right here. Falls perfectly and frankly for everyone involved. I think for Paul George too is also an amazing situation. But we could talk about the rest of the signings as we continue. But this is the crown jewel, not only for the Sixers, but this is the crown jewel of the free agency class of this offseason in general.
100%. And you started with it. Tyrese Maxey made it happen. I mean, he made it happen. Him waiting an extra year. You're my cap guy, but like him waiting an extra year and then cashing in when we were able to have that max slot because
he's just a cap hold. I mean, he's just a cap hold for like 10 mil.
Right.
He's gonna be playing for 40 million this season. And since he waited, he got to be technically a cap hold for 10 million, which lets you sign Paul George, which is great. I mean, it's great cap movement by Daryl Morey as well, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Sixers built him shout out. They built him like a museum, by the way, because of it. It was huge. Like
they built him a museum.
It's like a small exhibit. You know what I mean? But they call it the Tyrese Maxey Museum right now in Philly. So,
I mean, they got money. They had money to do it with all the money you saved them.
That's nuts.
So, I mean, yeah, I think the biggest shock to me of the whole offseason, I stared at my phone reading that Clippers statement of about Paul George. Like I was shocked that I was like, he's a Sixer. Like that when I was reading that was like, my immediate thought. KCP had already signed with the Magic, and I was like, we're competing with them cap piece wise. But I felt good about us getting Paul George anyway. But I still can't, I'm a little shocked that the Clippers didn't get anything in return for Paul George. Like that's for a Clippers preview. But and I don't know where they go from here. But it's like. Yeah, I read that statement. That was the first moment I felt like, Sixers really got Paul George. And I think there's, I came into this pod. I think there's like some public misconceptions about Paul George a little bit. And 100%, I see the playoff struggles this past year. But just to go over it, career best last season in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, impact defender. I mean, he can guard the best guy, the best offensive guy on the floor. He played 74 games last year. Paul George and Kawhi didn't play together. Paul George played a lot last season, and he had career numbers in every shooting category. I mean, just the upgrade from Tobias Harris to Paul George is insane. I mean, it's insane. So, look, 2 years from now, we might have a different conversation about how that contract looks. But, this is a guy coming off a career best season. His playoffs, 100%. I recognize it. I'm concerned about it, but I'm confident knowing the numbers he put up last year, the amount of games he played. I think Paul George gets a lot of criticism, but last year he had a good year. So I'm really liking that, and it's just a huge upgrade from Harris, obviously.
No, man, it's perfect. It is an absolutely beautiful fit. He fits a kind of that a little bit in its own way a Jimmy Butler mold, and their careers are so comparable all time. Maybe that's another conversation. Cool that you guys have had both of those players on your franchise. Hopefully, you don't mess this one up. And he is going to fit in the offense incredibly. If he can stay healthy defensively, he's still so good. To your point, the improvement over Tobias Harris is absolutely nuts. He was still an all-star last year. Was he all NBA or was he all NBA, Jason?
Not
He was
not
one of
all
the two.
NBA.
Whatever. I mean, yeah.
I put him in all NBA.
You did.
And I'll get to this.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
That's what
No,
matters.
for sure. But
I'm a Paul George believer, and I put him in all NBA this season. I thought he
dude,
was deserving.
yeah,
He did not.
he played amazing, and he will be the third best player on your guys' team. So with that in mind, I think that, well, I mean, we'll talk about predictions and whatnot, but this signing and the fact that he doesn't have to do it all, and when last year against the Mavs, he was their best player who was healthy. And we saw what happened. He ran into a not playing amazing Luka, to be fair, but that was the better situation. He's the third best player on this team. He'll be able to, I think he'll, knock on wood, he'll be healthy because, I mean, love to go against the Sixers in the playoffs, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Celtics Sixers. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I'm scared. I don't want to see the Celtics, honestly, but like the series are great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just love the fit for, I don't know. I love the fit for so many reasons. This is Paul George now going to be the third best player in a team. In every playoff series we've ever seen Paul George in, he's been like the best player on the team. If he's been healthy, to be fair. And then Kawhi, to be fair, Kawhi and Paul George played a ton last year together, and they basically averaged the same stats. Like, if face value, I believe they're within one unit for both points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, steals per game. But like, they're literally within extremely close numbers across the board, really similar shooting percentages. Just Kawhi got the nod, and Kawhi did have a slightly better season, to be fair.
Yeah.
But Paul George was amazing. I think Paul George is going to be great. In the playoffs, he was good. Over the last few playoffs, he's had to be the guy, even in the play-in games too, leading this team when Kawhi's been out for a whole year stretch. They've made the play-in game with Paul George as their best player, which Toby could never do, like, frankly. And I think there's arguments, could Maxey lead a team that is like, could Maxey have led a Clippers type team to a play-in berth in the West? Maybe not. Like, so Paul George deserves a lot of credit, in my opinion. I love that he's a ball handler and a ball creator too. You can kind of have some triangle stuff going on with him in the corner, Maxey up top, Embiid down low, back end action between the other role players. The other role players don't need to do that. The other role players don't need to create. Like, that's another thing. These other role players can be straight up cones. They can be just defense, 3 points. That's it. And that's the way you guys went, which we'll get to in a bit. But you're also not signing this contract for when Paul George is 34, which is at the end of this deal. You can trade him. You have first round picks still in the bank if you ever need to dump him for an upgrade. It's kind of like the Randall situation in New York, where like you have him, you're not trading him now, but you can you have assets to move him later. And we're not going to freak out about that now. I think it's all around like an amazing signing. I think it's an amazing fit. I love that he's tall. I love that he can defend, and I love that he's gonna have less of an offensive burden and will have more ability to play defense. He's always played well with centers. He's enjoyed playing with centers, which is a weird aspect, especially in today's NBA. Like, Embiid is such a down low paint presence, and I think pairing up players like with a guy like that is sometimes a little interesting. But Paul George's been used to it. Guys like Zubats, just paint monsters. Hibbert, these guys are just going to take speeds down low. They're not stretching the floor at all. And it's difficult to play with those guys, and Paul George can do it. So when Embiid is in that mode, it's going to be fine. I think it's a 10 out of 10 signing. Like, I cannot talk about it enough. I love this. I think it's a great fit. I think this propels you guys to being a top 3 to 4 team in the East.
Yeah, 100%. I'm pumped about it. Yeah, I mean, George, that's the other thing too. Like, Tobias, like, the Sixers got killed in that next series on offensive rebounds. I mean, we can, like, there's some unbelievable stat about it that, yeah, it was after game 4 in that next series. It was 3-1 was the series. Knicks were up 3-1. The point differential in that series was 4 points in those first 4 games. The Knicks had a plus 38 second chance points advantage. Like people, and I say this, and I know like people don't love it. They look at Embiid's lines and he collects rebounds. 100% he's going to collect rebounds. You guys probably saw it in Team USA this summer. He can drive me crazy sometimes on with rebounding. Like, he's not the best rebounder in the world. Tobias Harris, so many times just caught ball watching, not blocking out his guy. Like, Paul George, I think just he gives us that too. Even besides the fit, love the fit with him, Maxey, and Embiid, and even in pick and rolls, he can run them with Embiid. It's just like he gives us better rebounding too. I mean, our size is better. Just really, yeah. I think it's a great fit.
And we can say what we want about Paul George's performance in the playoffs. To be fair, he's always been a plus rebounder and a plus defensive player in the playoffs. And that's something that's like, even if he's terrible on offense, at least you get that aspect. I will say I kind of agree with that reflection on Embiid. Like, when you're 7 feet, you're going to be getting a lot of rebounds, but there's a lot of like, I wish this stat doesn't exist, but like a tough rebound percentage, like a percentage of like 30-70 balls, like balls that you're only getting 70% of the time. How many? Because Josh Hart, for example, it feels like he wins every 30-70 ball, but it feels like Embiid has never won a 30-70 ball in his life. And 30-70 balls, obviously I don't expect you to get all of them because they're 30-70 balls, but
get 30.
Yeah, but give me 30. Give me yeah. It's like Kevon Looney feels like he gets 100% of the 30-70 balls.
Right.
And you don't know how. Like,
and I'll tell you, I get hate. And I've made funny jokes about I want Kevon Looney. It's because of that reason. Like, in the playoffs, just getting defensive rebounds it's so important. Like, these guys are way too good offensively that you cannot give teams 2 or 3 extra possessions every time down the floor. And we're not even getting offensive rebounds. So we're giving up defensive rebounds. We're not attacking the glass, getting offensive rebounds. We'll get to some of the other signings that can help, I think, a little bit with this. But, like, you can't just give up 2 to 3 possessions every time. I mean,
I think that's fair. The one thing, bro, I got to say, though, and, like, this isn't what y'all are not saying, but to zig on your zag, Embiid was the best player in the NBA for the beginning of the season.
Of course.
Bar none, the dominance was there, and it definitely would have changed this conversation because the need for that offensive or defensive rebounding, closing out possessions, it would have been there, but it wouldn't have been as important. And I think that lack of health that we saw with Embiid, his stats, to your point, were amazing, 30 and 13. He was 34 and whatever in 11, I think, in the regular season. But he looked like one of the top 5 players I've ever witnessed with my eyes. Yeah. His dominance in the game was unbelievable. He looked, to the eye test, more dominant than Jokic. I know that that's a crazy thing to say because Jokic's finals were otherworldly, but his individual dominance, the way he could steamroll over again. I remember watching him against the Magic, right? And they're all 6'10", and they can do everything. And he was going nuts. He was just hitting free throw sort of level jumpers like it was nothing and had a complete and utter flow of the game. I think he scored like 16 points in the first 4 minutes of the game. I was like, what am I watching? Yeah. So I think to that one point, my biggest thing with you guys is going to be health and chemistry as well, because I don't think we've ever seen like a fully healthy Embiid. He's also had a lot of bad games, game 6 and game 7 against the Celtics the season before too. Mm-hmm. But with that health, with that depth, this is a really exciting place to be. So, yeah, man.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say don't get me wrong. It's not like the Sixers overcompensated. I can get into the future moves now. It's not like they went out and got a stretch 4 who rebounds a ton. If we're really looking at it, this team is built at this point of point guards, of centers, and of everyone else. So you've got Tyrese Maxey, you've got Kyle Lowry, you've got Reggie Jackson, right? So those are your point guards. You got your centers. You got Joel Embiid, you got Drummond, you got Bana. Those are your 3 centers. Everyone else is kind of a shooting guard, kind of a small forward, kind of a power forward. It's basically just 3 and D guys. We have Paul George, we mentioned him, but you got like Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre. Eric Gordon, Jared McCain, Ricky Council, shout out, great player. KJ Martin. These are all guys who are really qualified 3-and-D guys, but none of these guys are like power forwards or like shooting guards. These are all wings. These are all guys who stand at 3-point line and play good perimeter defense. I don't know what that to describe this position, but yeah.
Yeah, tons of thoughts on the roster now, and like I agree with you. I think we're a little small, a little bit. I think we could use another big. I think we have like one roster spot available. People talk Marcus Morris. People talk Davis Bertans.
Bertans.
I don't want Bertans at all. But I mean, it's like, look, the thing is, like, Caleb Martin, it's good for him. Like, I've seen such good moments. Like, Anthony, you probably can't even, like, he just sees that Celtics series is brutal. But yeah, he's got to hit threes. Like, he can.
Oh, he doesn't.
Well. Like, he can defend well. Oubre was on a minimum last year, and
it was amazing.
Had an unreal season,
a rehab season.
Yeah, and earn that contract. Like, those guys are huge pieces, and like defensively, like there's people have seen it. Like Maxey, they're saying put on pounds. Like,
wait, he has. You saw him at the pregame conference.
Yep. Like, people, he's like the one issue a little bit defensively. Like of course he's out there, but like, because of offense, but like in terms of switching, we could switch now. Like, Martin can switch, Oubre can switch, Paul George can switch. That gives us like so much flexibility. Like, I'm not saying Max, like we had to hide Maxey a little bit last year, like in the playoffs a little bit. Like, he couldn't guard Brunson. Obviously, we had to put Oubre on him, and Oubre did fairly well, as well as he could against Brunson in that series. But like, yeah, I mean the pieces are there. I love our wings. It comes down. You gotta hit shots, hit threes. Oubre cutting. I'm looking forward to that. I'll say this too. B-ball Paul. I'm gonna miss him. Paul Reed. Look, like it wasn't working. It just really, like, I think I have a stat here. Paul Reed played in the Knicks series when every time Joel sat, he was a minus 44 in that series. Paul Reed. You know how close that series was. Paul Reed was a minus 44. That's the life of a Sixers fan, is like when Embiid comes out of the game, you just have to stay afloat. Like, you have to survive those minutes when he's out. Drummond, I think, just a significantly better boost there. He's just bigger. He can rebound better. And then just last point on Drummond, like, the Sixers didn't want to trade him 2 years ago to Brooklyn, but like to get that James Harden deal done, Brooklyn essentially was like, no, you have to throw Drummond in that deal with Simmons. So we didn't even want to get rid of Drummond. Now we have him back. I think he's younger than a lot of people. Like, he's still so young.
Like 31.
It's crazy.
He's so young.
Yeah.
Good passer still at this point in his career, weirdly. Like, you can kind of work with it. Like, he can't create off the dribble. He can't post up or at all, but he can kind of, your offense keeps flowing while he's in the game, weirdly.
Yeah. So I think that's an upgrade. Love B-ball. But I think that's just a huge upgrade there. And then, like you said, the wing depth is huge. I mean, the Sixers have like never had that. And I mean, Paul George, Caleb, and Oubre. I mean, that's great. So yeah, feeling good.
And I think there's like fun things here that are like, I'll disagree. I'll push back a little bit. I don't know if you really need a big. I don't really know if you need a stretch big man. I kind of like the way the team's formatted. If Embiid gets hurt, you're screwed anyways. So let's roll and let's assume that Embiid's playing 40 minutes in a playoff game here. Drummond's playing 8. And at that point, like, do I really need, who's a good example? Who's a stretch 4? Do I really need OG Anunoby compared to Caleb Martin or Paul George at that point? it would be nice, but I kind of like the way that the team is formatted, where all the wings know what the role is. They're there to facilitate scoring and play some, or to help on the scoring and play some defense. All the guards are there to be offensive hubs. All the centers are there to be played through in some way, shape, or form. Embiid obviously more so than Bonner and Drummond. Like, I don't know. I'm really excited to see this on the surviving Embiid being out like stuff. Obviously I feel that a ton with the Steph Curry stuff. We play the same game. The moment Steph Curry subs out, how many points are we going down? And then I also feel the thing where you always have to hide your small guards on defense. Like we have to hide Curry. Y'all have to hide Maxey. But most other teams have a small guard to hide. Like the Celtics are the exception to the rule. Like Brunson, he's solid defensively, but he's not an all NBA defender. Like other teams, Cavs, they've got small guards to hide, etc. You can deal with that until you get to the Celtics. When you get to the Celtics, you hope Embiid's dropping 45 a game and he coasts you to the finals, but that's a different discussion. Yeah, I don't know. In general, I'm really liking this team, and there's moves to be made. If you come to the deadline and you decide that there's a move you want, you've got 5 or 6 future firsts. So,
yep, I'm gonna hit you with a move right now at the deadline. I want to run by you guys. So, KJ Martin basically signed a contract. I think like the same exact deal that like Josh Okogie signed, 2 years, $16 million, and basically it's like
you're a trade. You're
like a balloon deal where they just gave him this money. He's a young player, gave him this deal. Since we're over the first apron, like we gotta, we can't, return more money than we're spending. So we ballooned KJ Martin to try to make him an asset at the deadline. KJ Martin, the piece that I think that could be helpful for us is if we stay healthy, obviously, and we're in contention, is like KJ Martin for some Larry Nance. For some Larry Nance flip. We need a little bit of size.
Dude, I was thinking Jonathan Isaac. Like type of player, like type of build.
You're right.
But Larry Nance, bro, that's good.
Larry Nance, like great rebounder, really good defender. Like
spaces.
Can shoot. Can defend.
Salaries wise, I'm afraid we might have to like throw in Council or something like that in there. But maybe Morey figures it out like a different way, and it's somebody else. But like that's sort of the move left that I think the Sixers can make.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that move, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah, and then look, like small guards, shooters. We have like Jared McCain. Really like that pick.
He's small. He's small though. To be fair,
he's really small, but in college, great shooter, and he's a very good finisher around the rim too.
Good defender, a little slept on defensively.
Great
dancer.
Yeah, TikToker. Council I like. Any offense Council can give this year. Like he's good defensively. He's got bounce that I like. Bona I think is probably like a year 2 project ultimately. Like Bona a lot. Look good in the summer league, but like and then the other guy I was gonna say is Eric Gordon.
Yes, sir.
Look, we just need him to hit a few threes, hit a couple shots. He was with Daryl in Houston. I think that's part of the reason he's back. It's kind of like a reunion in Philly with him. Daryl likes the fit. I trust that. So have a little bit of small guards that can shoot a little bit. We talked about wing rotation, upgraded, I think, from Paul Reed to Drummond. So I think that's my prediction. KJ Martin for a Larry Nance flip, something like that.
I like it.
I really like that deal. And also if you're Atlanta, I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Like at some point, Nance is probably taking up minutes that one of your young centers or one of your centers, not young at this point, one of your centers or one of your wings between Recess Shea, between even DeAndre Hunter, if you want to start playing him at the 4, stuff like that. I actually really, really like that trade for all sides. You could throw in 1 first, a bunch of seconds, do whatever at that point. Some other interesting things about Eric Gordon is like last year when he got minutes, he was disgusting. To start the year, the first 3 months of the season is basically averaging like 16 a game. for the first 3 months playing 32 minutes a game during that span, but then his minutes trail off, or by the end of the season, he's playing like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And when he gets minutes, he shoots well. When he doesn't get minutes, doesn't shoot too well.
Yep.
But like, even if Eric Gordon only plays 15 minutes in a playoff game, if Maxey gets hurt for 15 games, Eric Gordon's going to be able to come in, play 25 minutes a game, and give you really good production and raise your floor a good amount. Like and a signing like him, I really like for floor raising. I really like Caleb Martin, frankly, for floor raising if he's healthy, because Martin isn't the 55% from three shooter that he was against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago, obviously, but he's super consistent, great role player. And same thing with Council too. Like if Council needs to play 18 to 22 minutes a game, he's gonna be able to now. I think. I hope so.
Yep. And then unsung like leader, I think, in the locker room for us.
Yeah.
With like all these moving pieces is Lowry. Like he was vocal during that Knicks playoff series. He was in the huddle. He took the clipboard from Nick Nurse. Like he's definitely, like, as a veteran, he's kind of a leader, I think, in the locker room. I love Kyle Lowry from Philly anyway. So
Him and Nurse got that connect.
They got right, exactly, from Toronto, exactly. So I like it. Every piece like makes sense. Every piece on the roster now for the Sixers, like they fit into a good spot. So
Dude,
yeah,
so good. And bro, when you guys got Caleb Martin, that was shocking a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he turned down whatever amount of money. Didn't he turn down a 4-year, $53 million contract to go play in Philly?
Yep. I forget from where, but you're right. Yeah, exactly.
That's bro. I mean, you guys look good. That Larry Nance piece, that power forward, that 6'8" to 6'10" who can shoot, play some defense. That feels like the missing piece.
Yeah,
but bro, you guys are in a good spot.
And even a player like that doesn't even need to give you like 35 minutes, like, because with Embiid, realistically, you're not rolling with two guys who are 6'10" and above when you've got Embiid. Hopefully you don't need rebounding that badly where you need another 6'10" guy in the lineup. Because frankly, all we've seen from Embiid his whole career is that he needs to be playing next to guys who are 6'8" and lower. Like that's basically all we've learned.
Super quick point. Like I said at the beginning about Batum, like I'm worried about the Batum loss. Right? It reminded me when you said like 70-30 balls. Nick Batum, I don't know, every single loose ball for the Sixers, every competitive rebound and stuff, it felt like he was getting those boards. Like he is tough in there, and I just think the Sixers like need a piece like that, and like I think he's a tough loss. But again, like I'm being pretty nitpicky, in terms of in terms of that. But like I think he's a big loss that if we can add somebody that can fight for rebounds, help with the 70-30, variance. Like I think that's a piece we could use.